It's like, come on, GM, you got to do the right thing. You expect customer loyalty, but you're not providing brand loyalty.
So, and you were towing, so you've got the video online. I'll show that here.
And boy, Jacques turned things.
All right, everyone, we've got Joe here. You're still a current GM owner, right?
Well, for what it's worth, I mean, that truck is still sitting at the dealership down in Pueblo for the last 2+ months.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So Joe's a current GM owner, slightly disgruntled. You've suffered from the most recent valve body issue. I think it's just be good to start out with your story and yeah, just tell us what truck you have and kind of give us the background of this issue, how it affected you.
So I have a 2020 Sierra Denali 2500 HD with diesel engine, 10-speed transmission, and we were with about 110,000 miles on it. And we were hauling south on I-25, leaving wintertime in Colorado to go spend some time in Texas. When everything was going perfectly smooth, and then suddenly it felt like we crashed. My wife literally thought a semi hit us from behind. I knew it wasn't that, but I wasn't sure what it was at first. And when it happened, it shifted us over across the lane line. Luckily, there was nobody there. It was just a empty shoulder. Took us a couple of minutes to get off the highway to a safe spot where I could get into what was going on and get my eyes on everything. In the meantime, it happened 4 more times. Much lower severity because we were at lower speeds because the truck just wouldn't accelerate at that point. So I knew it was likely something to do with the transmission, but I had no clue as to this valve body recall, and didn't learn about that until a few days later when the truck was at a local shop down in Pueblo, Colorado, and the mechanic there, he goes, your transmission oil is black, it's toast. He goes, but there's no computer code stored in any system of the truck, which was bizarre because normally with a transmission problem, you'd expect the dashboard to light up like a Christmas tree and there'd be 4 or 5 codes popping on the computer, and he had nothing. And in his research, he found this recall, which I didn't even know about at the time. This is December 28th. So we hadn't even seen any kind of notification. I had no idea this even existed yet. And that led me to, called up GM, the local dealership, called up GM, because the local dealership kind of played like they didn't know what the hell I was talking about at first. And then I called GM, and they took it seriously right from the get-go, but they really haven't done a whole lot. Had to get the truck over to the local dealership down there, and they've been sitting on it ever since. It needs a new transmission. They've told me that they don't know when they can get it, and I'm waiting to see if GM's going to pony up and cover this, because this is their mistake. It's a cascading damages due to the valve body failure. And just because I'm out of warranty doesn't mean that I should be completely out of luck here. And let's face it, most of us don't have $10,000 laying around to put a new transmission in a truck.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I can't believe, 1, that transmissions cost $10,000 anymore, and 2, that they don't last. Sure, there's people that have good luck and they get 150,000 out of these, but for the amount of people you see in the Facebook groups and online having this issue, it's definitely something that they should be warranting more than just the valve body on. That's my opinion. But
on the warranty extension, that was made very clear to me by multiple sources that is strictly just to cover the valve body. Yep. The last communication I had with the rep from GM, who I talked to, we got the truck in there on the 30th of December. They started a case. It got escalated the following week because they have to have everything wait a few days before they escalate the case. When I talked to the current person, I talked to him. The first time I talked to him was January 7th. Didn't hear back from him until this past week. I'd called him and left 10, 15 voicemails and just no response, nothing. Which, okay, they're not saying no.
Right.
Here I am. My wife and I live full-time in our RV traveling for our business, and it's our only vehicle. So we're kind of stranded over here where, we're not in the worst place in the world out, of course, at this point, but we're stuck 10 miles from the grocery store and without a vehicle. So it's kind of tough.
Oh, geez. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I think people, that's another thing I see folks misinterpret how severe it is in certain situations. If you're towing across the country, or, a lot of these heavy duty vehicles, that's what I know. My uncle does the same thing you do. He buys a heavy duty Denali, and then he bought the fifth wheel, and they travel the country, and they're gone.
Yeah.
Their home is, 2,000 miles away. it's like, it's a big deal.
This is all we got. This is our home. It was me, my wife, our dogs. It just
Yeah.
and suddenly GM had other ideas. We didn't make it to where we were supposed to be getting to, and so I'm just, like I said, I'm waiting for them to make a decision. I don't know if they're trying to figure out, is it actually the valve body that failed that caused this, even though it's pretty clear that everything's consistent with that. But my understanding is that when you're out of warranty, they have to go through this extensive investigation process, which they told me can take 30 to 60 days. I don't know why it takes 30 to 60 days, but they say it does. In which case they would apply it to like a defects clause in their in their insurance kind of stuff, where they would cover the damages. But again, here I am at I think we're day 62 right now since I got it into GM, and just don't. It's like, hey, I need some answers.
Yeah. Have you asked for a loaner, or have they offered one, or have you gone down that path at all?
So they told, I did ask. I've asked for a loaner. I was told by the rep at GM that it is not their policy to give out loaner vehicles in these cases. So I was like, okay.
Did they say it was specifically because it was out of warranty, or just they just don't give it?
They've been very vague.
Yeah.
They've been very vague about things. He just said in this type of case, and I'm like, well, we got to do something here. And like I said, I didn't hear from him for 4 or 5 weeks. Finally got a hold of him. It was actually kind of funny because when the guy actually answered the phone, I was dumbfounded for a second. I just didn't know what to say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, man. So, and you were towing, so you've got the video online. I'll show that here.
Yeah, and boy, Jacques turned things started to get good finally, and that 86 since that's a long time. That night I got.
So you were towing 15,000 pound trailer. You've got the dash cam video footage of it, so it's like very consistent with everything in the recall. And then they say they still need an investigation.
Yeah. Well, they don't want the dash cam video. I actually asked them if they wanted it, and they said no. I kind of, I just, they didn't want it. They don't want to see it. I think they want some plausible deniability there or something, but they were not interested in it at all. So,
well, they've seen it now, because I know
I suspect they've seen it because that video's out there.
Yeah, your video's out. I took a clip from your video and put it in mine, and then this one's going to be additional.
Yep.
I think word's getting out, and it's, so take us through. So that kind of triggered you to start this Facebook group and help people really understand. So the issue starts with the 2020s through 2022 is what the recall covers, and it's really more than even the heavy duties.
Right. So starting the Facebook group came from when this first happened. I didn't even know what was going on yet. I just learned that this recall existed. I went on a couple of Duramax forums on Facebook, and I was like, hey, who knows anything about this? And a couple people said, yeah, I just got a notification from GM, valve body, transmission, blah, 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 blah. And I'm no mechanic. I know enough to be dangerous. I know the very basics of how a transmission works. I know a lot more now, but I'm still no expert by any stretch of the imagination. And I've never been a huge fan of social media, but I saw the power that I was getting nowhere in the first week or so. I was getting nowhere with GM in terms of getting any information, getting any answers, getting any satisfaction of how are we going to make this right. And I was like, if I can get a big group of people together who share their experiences, we're bound to get some experts in there like the guys from Next Gen Drivetrain out in Pennsylvania and a couple of others like them who can educate people on, one, what's going on, how they can get it fixed, that there is actually a correction for this, not, contrary to what GM says, where they don't really have anything to fix it just yet. And I figured, if we get enough people together, it's hard for GM to just tell us all to take a hike. They've got to step up and they've got to do the right thing. And if it doesn't help me, it doesn't help me. But if it helps somebody down the road, then it's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was even before the recall, it was interesting because Fabrats, he has a YouTube channel, a very large YouTube channel, and he documented repairing his valve body on he has a 2500 or 3500. And this was before the recall, and he kind of walks through it and nonchalantly, just repairs the valve body. It's not a terrible upgrade, but then, gosh, you wonder. It's like GM has known about this. Next Gen has informed them. I would have to assume they just didn't want to pay for external engineering. Is essentially what it comes down to. Using Next Gen's kit.
That's my guess as well. I mean, I think there's a little bit of pride in GM's side where they don't want to admit that some one-off shop off in Pennsylvania fixed this problem before anybody officially knew what was going on. Because I mean, they've known about this problem since. I mean, again, I can't document this for sure, but if you just follow the logic strands, they started installing this software upgrade in the trucks in the 2022 model production year. So that was back in 2021. It took time to develop that software that they attach to the transmission control module that monitors the conditions and it detects the excessive wear, and then it essentially shuts your truck down. So it's really not much of a fix, but it satisfies the requirements from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration regarding limiting the hazard to the driver and other vehicles on the road with them. Because obviously, when something like this happens, it could create a huge problem. But the fact is, they're still using the same transmission and same valve body to this day. I talked to somebody a couple of weeks ago on our Facebook group who has a 2025. He had 1,500 miles on it, and the valve body failed. And he had a not quite as violent as my video because he wasn't hauling a heavy rig, but he had a load in the back of the truck. And he said it wasn't quite as violent as that, but 1,500 miles?
Yeah, that's bad.
I mean, come on, that's first month owning the truck.
Yeah, I saw a guy that, the last video I did, I found someone that he got a lemon law buyback from General Motors. He had a 2024, AT4X, 3 valve bodies, and that was it. He was done. He's like, okay,
I saw that one. I saw that conversation. Lemon law is a great path for people to pursue. But for those like me who are out of original warranty, lemon law doesn't apply anymore. Yeah,
and in your case, it's like there's so many steps to it. In my opinion, first of all, customers shouldn't be required to. If you're purchasing a truck, that I can only imagine what your truck costs. I mean, every truck I've looked at is over $60,000 anymore, and yours is yours a dually? Did you say?
No, it's the 3/4 ton Denali, but it's an $85,000 truck, brand new in 2020.
Right. Yeah, that's an expensive rig, and there isn't a person on the planet that expects that to. You're buying the heavy duty. You don't expect it to go down on you till, especially with the Allison branded label.
That's a whole other conversation. How many people? I mean, myself included. When we were preparing for this and I was doing my homework about what truck we wanted to buy to haul our home, like we said, I went to a few mechanics I know and I was like, hey, what do you suggest? I mean, I've driven the Ram, I've driven the Ford, I've driven the Chevy, I've driven the GMC. And they all said the same thing. They said, everybody's got a great diesel engine right now. Everybody's doing, they're creating some really cool, innovative transmission stuff and whatnot. He goes, but the combination of the Duramax and the Allison transmission, it can't be beat. And then we find out that this isn't even an Allison transmission. GM just paid Allison to use their name from the sound of it. And we're all like, wait a second. I feel like we all got duped here on top of what went on here. And so it's frustrating. I can feel, I know I'm not alone with the frustration and with the, I mean, this time I'm just angry. I'm just pissed. It's like, come on, GM, you got to do the right thing. You expect customer loyalty, but you're not providing brand loyalty.
Yeah. So what, I mean, for your personal situation, I'm always curious, what, if GM steps up and, throws a new transmission in there, do you trust it, or what path would you take, after that?
I'm not going to trust that truck after the hit that it took. That's going to be like a straight up PTSD situation. Like, I'm going to get in that truck and try to haul my rig. I'm just going to be like, I can't do it. The thing is, me and my wife, we were already talking about bumping up to a 1-ton, just for a little extra stability. I mean, we have a big fifth wheel, and this truck. I mean, honestly, to the moment this happened, I loved this truck like no vehicle I've ever owned. It hauls great. It does everything I want it to do. We're high on our numbers with our towing. We have plenty of towing capacity. We're a little high on on the upper echelon of the payload capacity. But I wanted a little more stability. So we were already talking about bumping up. So I'm going to do that regardless. It's just a matter of, do I stick with GM? Do I go to the Ford, which, by the way, the newer Fords are having the same problem with their valve bodies on their 10-speed transmissions, but they're also apparently having a pretty big problem with the torque converters. And I don't know if that's a cause and effect thing both ways. I know one conversation I had with one of the guys over at Next Gen, he said that once the hydraulics in the valve body fail, that can affect the entire system of the transmission.
Yeah.
But the other thing he said when I asked, and again, I know enough about this type of stuff to be dangerous. I have a degree in engineering, but not mechanical. But I know how forces work and how the impacts are going to affect it. And I asked him, I said, when these failures occur, how much damage is being done down the drive line, the drive shaft, the rear differential, the axle, the bearings? And he said, for the most part, they have not seen much damage downline. The transmission takes the entire hit. So that being said, if GM fixes the truck, I'm going to go trade it in anyway. It just means I'm going to get a whole lot better trade-in on it than if I'm trading in a derelict. Yeah. And depending on the case, I've talked to a few people. It sounds like even all the problems that all the makers are having right now, GM's still the best option, which is it's a little anxiety driving.
Yeah.
But
after watching your video,
it freaked us out. My wife was really scared. I held it together to get us off the road, but when I got off the highway and was able to pull off to the side and get situated, I was pretty shaken up. It was the unknown of it, like the unexpected, the unknown. What the heck's going on? No warnings, no indications. You can see in the video how smooth the road was. It was some of the best driving conditions I've had in a while hauling. And then kaboom. A few people that have watched the video say it sounded like something exploded. And I'm like, well, it kind of did.
Did GM tear your transmission down and say that it was just toast? Needs a brand new one?
So the guys at the dealership, when so at first the dealership, their service department told me, oh yeah, well, we drove it. It drives kind of funny, but we couldn't get it to replicate what you're talking about. Like I said, they were playing stupidly. They didn't know what I was talking about. And then I said, well, did you guys check the transmission? And they're like, oh, do you want us to drop the pan and check the transmission? I'm like, I can't believe you didn't do that already.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is very consistent with this recall. And they all kind of like, looked at me funny. And then they pulled a sample of the transmission oil, and it looked like metallic black paint with chunks of metal in it. I have a picture of a glass jar with the transmission oil, and you can see two chunks of metal, and it just looks like metallic black paint. And it's like, oh
wow.
yeah, your transmission shot. I'm like, I already knew that.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, they were all experts on this recall. They went from acting like they didn't know what I was talking about to all of a sudden they were experts.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I
Which
wonder
thought was
why.
kind of funny.
Yeah, you wouldn't think a dealership. I mean, it seems like from reading some of the next gen reports, some dealerships seem like they're really wanting, like they understand that, hey, we got to take care of our customers because they're going to leave the brand if we don't. And then some dealerships do that, pretend like we don't know what's going on. I saw that with Toyota and their engine recall. I was asking my Toyota dealer locally, how's this engine recall going for you guys? And they said, oh, we haven't seen any engine problems. I'm like, come on, guys.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I was, again, talking to a couple of people I know, including a friend of mine that used to work at a local dealership, actually a GM dealership over here in Castle Rock. And he was saying, he goes, on these recall deals, he's like, the dealership doesn't make any money. They're doing everything for cost. They really don't want to deal with it in a lot of cases. The dealerships that do, they're the ones that care about winning over a lifelong customer. Because let's be honest with the issues, and this isn't just these trucks. This isn't just this class of trucks. This is across the automotive board. The last 10, 15 years, cars are having more and more problems early on in their life. Lemon law attorneys are making money hand over fist because they're pushing out vehicles that the dealerships don't want to deal with it. The brand doesn't want to deal with it. They're trying to keep up. I mean, look at the faulty ignition switch recall that GM just had. 30 million vehicles worldwide back in 2015 to 2016. And the dealerships understand that if I do right by the customer, that customer is going to be loyal to my dealership. Whether they're loyal to GM or Ford or Dodge or Chrysler or whoever, they're going to be loyal to that dealership because that dealership did them right. And so we're all kind of trapped with a situation that isn't the ideal. And as one mechanic told me recently, he goes, all the trucks right now have a problem, and you got limited choices. He goes, pick the emblem you want on the front of your truck and hope you get one of the good ones.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, that's a sorry statement at the industry right now. Because here's the thing, in American car makers, one thing we always did well was trucks.
Mm-hmm.
People goof on Ford all they want, but I mean, I worked in the construction industry for a bunch of years, and I can't tell you the number of F-150 and F-250s I drove in that were 20 years old with 350,000 miles on them, all hard miles driving on construction sites. In the meantime, my uncle has a Ford Taurus at the time that was basically dying at 75,000 miles. But we always did trucks well, and now that we're not doing trucks well, it's kind of like, well, God, we only got three options here. If you're doing heavy duty hauling or work truck, you got GM, you got Ford, you got Dodge. We don't have choices there.
Yep, and the heavy duty choices used to be. I remember when it was there was a gap. You had 1,500 to 2,500 was a pay gap, but you could find something that was a work truck affordable, could tow, and then the Denali was a step up. But it wasn't. Even the Denali's felt like okay. It was you get a lot of features. It was sort of a reasonable cost back in the day, but now it's like it feels like they're just exploiting wealth in the country, and then when you exploit wealth and build an inferior product, it's like that's just frustrating.
I mean, I don't mind paying for a good product. Give me quality, and I'll pay for it. Give me the value. I just want what I paid for. I mean, the price is what the price is. And let's face it. There's a lot that's been happening over the last 20 years, maybe even more, where the government's putting regulations on the automakers, whether it's safety stuff, whether it's emission stuff, you name it. There's been stuff across the board. So some of it's good stuff, some of it's not so good stuff. I don't want to get into a political discussion because that doesn't do anybody any good here. But the fact is, the safety stuff makes the trucks heavier, okay? But then they want better emissions. And the number one factor in what a car gets for efficiency is its weight. So now you're forcing innovations like the 10-speed transmission, which the whole idea there is that you get better fuel economy because you keep the RPMs in the ideal zone for a higher percentage of the time you're driving. So you get the quote unquote highway mileage when you're driving in other conditions, because the transmission is almost seamless in all the different gears, and you basically have more choices. But when we and this you know this when we force innovation, we mess things up. And it feels like this is a case where they've forced so much innovation that we're just not ready for a 10-speed transmission from the sound of it, because GM isn't doing a good job of it and Ford isn't doing a very good job of it. But then, you got guys like Next Gen who are, hey, we got the fix. We had people start coming into us like 3 or 4 years ago going, hey, what happened to my transmission? And then they came up with a solution. Is it the only solution? Probably not. I'm sure I've seen a few other places out there selling, basically sounds like a lot of places are just selling a more beefed up replacement valve body.
Right.
Whether that actually solves the problem or it just masks it in higher pressure conditions remains to be seen. But if people can drive their truck without having to worry about it, blowing up on them, then that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw some comments on my video that were saying that, they haven't had any trouble with them. And then other people that had, 10 in a fleet that they had to replace the valve body, but they did say, and I think Next Gen said that that was Next Gen's frustration when they looked at the transmission problem and they tore it down. They said, this is a really well built, very beefy transmission. It's 90% of it's really good, but then the valve body's not, and then the valve body kind of takes out the good part. That's the frustrating.
Well, yeah, that was the same conversation I had with one of the guys from Next Gen. I asked him, I said, hey, what's your opinion? Should I just say goodbye to GM and go figure something else out? He goes, here's the thing. He goes, if they can figure out this valve body, this is a great transmission. It's a very well-built transmission. It's just the accessories. And again, it sounds like Ford's having similar problems. But if they can figure out the accessories on the transmission, the control module stuff, and the valve bodies and the torque converters, it's a solid, well-built transmission. That's probably why, in a lot of cases where people weren't hauling and they had this happen, and they literally just had their rear wheels lock up, chirp the tires, probably lost control and swerved a little bit, they're not having completely destroyed transmissions.
Yeah.
But the people that were carrying a heavy load in the bed or hauling a large trailer, those are resulting in a catastrophic destruction of the transmission from the sound of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of folks like you, when they buy a truck like that, it could only be a couple years old, and you're putting miles on it because you're traveling and that's what you're doing. And it doesn't take long to get out of powertrain warranty.
No, exactly. And here's the thing. Let's be honest. A diesel truck, diesel engine, 100,000 miles is just getting warmed up in a good big diesel. Yeah. That's. I when I went and bought our truck, I bought used, and it's not because we had a budget. Everybody has a budget, and it's not like we couldn't spend money if we wanted to. We just it's like, hey, we have a total of this much and this much. We got to buy the truck and we got to buy the trailer, and these fifth wheels aren't cheap either. We'll talk about the damage this did to the fifth wheel afterwards. I went out and found the one we wanted, but I said I didn't want anything that had less than 50,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
I was like, 50,000 miles just breaking in a diesel. That's just, that's when you generally have worked out all the little bugs. Come on. Mass production assembly lines are great for production, but hey, stuff gets missed. There's going to be, 8 or 10% of the entire lot of vehicles that comes off they're going to have some defects. Usually they're minor stuff, wires didn't get connected the way they were supposed to. There'll be things, a bad fuel pump got in, so we can't test every fuel pump before we send the car out off the assembly line. So, when these happen, but then we have one like this where it's a massive problem. And then again, I think a lot of people's frustration on this is because of the fact that, well, one, GM's been apparently sitting on it for so long, but also these aren't everyday riders for most people. These are work trucks. These are purpose trucks. Nobody's buying an a 3500 dually and driving it around town because he likes the way it looks.
Yeah.
That's a work truck. That's a revenue driver. I talked to one guy in the group the other day. He basically he has a 2500, and he bit the bullet to put a new transmission in it because it was costing him more to not have the truck operational than it was to put the $10,000 out and pay for the transmission.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he took money out of his own pocket, and basically he got told after the fact by an attorney. He goes, now GM's not going to do anything for you. You took the reins. You did what you got to do. They're just going to say, oh no, yeah, you fixed it. It's not our problem anymore. One attorney I talked to when I was first looking into that a few weeks ago, basically I talked to her. Her law firm here in Colorado handled a lot of the recall lawsuit stuff with the GM faulty ignition switch one a few years back. And she's like, okay, let's look at your auto insurance. Sometimes they don't exclude mechanical damage, and what'll happen is they'll pay for your fix, and then they'll go after GM. I've seen that in a number of cases. I said, okay, but my insurance, specifically excludes mechanical failures. And I said, well, so now it seems to me like my best bet is to wait for GM. She goes, yeah. She goes, there's a chance GM's going to say yes, and they're going to do the right thing, and they're going to fix your truck. She goes, but if you go in there with a lawyer, everything stops. She goes, once you get a lawyer involved, it's a 6 month to a year process to get anything accomplished. And I was like, yeah, I can't do that.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that it would be that long. I mean, it seemed like from what I've read about a lot of lawyer issues with the Toyota problem online, it seems like once someone gets a lawyer involved with the Toyota engine issue, it's like an instant buyback, but that's usually folks that, bought something new, it's still under warranty and it's been 30 days past the, it's all the check boxes where they have legal precedent to do something about it.
Yeah. Most states have a pretty solid lemon law in place for those cases, and the dealerships know they're not going to win that fight. But the difference here is that in those cases, with the lemon law, the lawyer's going after the dealership, not the brand. In this case, we're going at where it's out of warranty. The dealership's off the hook now, and it's up to a lawyer to go after GM corporate. Which I don't know about you, but I can't afford to fight GM corporate. I'm gonna run out of money a lot faster than they do.
Yeah, and it's and thinking back to in 2019, didn't Next Gen say that the valve body right before the 2020s was actually didn't have any problems? They didn't have a single issue with those. I think it was, and that's probably where you got your info. I don't know if they said that they didn't have any, but it definitely wasn't a big problem. Going back to was that the 8-speed or the 6-speed transmission at that point? I have to go look. What I remember,
I thought the 6-speed was the last one they had trouble with.
Man, what a mess. Ford had their issues, like you said. They've had multiple issues. They kind of rushed that 10-speed out. They had those drum issues. They redesigned the drum, and in 2023, I think they have fewer failures. But now, if you're saying now they're having torque converter failures, that's a different problem than the drum issue they were having. So. Yeah.
When I started, was because when I saw a lot of people start talking about, this isn't a Allison transmission. It's GM and Ford tag team to design, and that was actually the one that's in the half-ton trucks. Apparently, on the HD trucks, they each kind of went and did their own thing. Okay. The transmissions are very similar, but they're not exactly the same. But I when I was doing that reading, I found a whole bunch of talk about Ford and torque converters. But at least with the torque converter. Yeah, it's a problem. Yes, it creates a problem for your truck. Yeah, but it's not the level of problem of you're going 65 miles an hour in 8th gear on the highway with a trailer, and your truck decides it wants to downshift to second.
Yeah,
because that's what happens.
What happened to your trailer? What damage did you have?
So we're seeing signs that the frame of the trailer may have been bent.
Jeez.
So yeah, that's a whole other set of question marks. I'm waiting to get somebody who is qualified to check out, because the bigger RV, big fifth wheels over the last few years have had a problem with frame. They refer to as frame flex. Usually, you see there's a few brands, but the Lippert trailer frames have had problems with that. We haven't had, our trailers are 2019. We haven't had any problems with that up to now. But I'm just seeing a couple little things that are like, that's got me wondering. And I've been researching who in the area is qualified to do that inspection, and try to get them out here to take a look at things and basically confirm to me, okay, am I safe hauling this again? What's it going to cost to fix? What is the fix? Is there a fix? And then that may be a case of going to my trailer insurance group. But the problem is, when your trailer is attached to your truck, it's covered under your truck insurance. When it's detached, that's when it's covered. That's when it's covered under our RV insurance. So that's a whole other question mark, a whole other set of potential problems. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully it's just a couple of things that are worn and just not lined up right. Because let's face it, these fifth wheels, all these RVs the last 20 years, they're not the greatest built. They're good enough, but like I say to people when I haul my trailer, whenever I haul my trailer, I'm putting it through an earthquake and a hurricane at the same time. There's going to be problems.
Yeah, the biggest thing I ever hauled was maybe a 34-foot trailer, and it wasn't a fifth wheel, but I remember going through Wyoming a few times, and boy, that'll wake you
wind.
up.
Yeah, that wind. I had that down in New Mexico last year, where it was like 45-mile-an-hour winds from my side the whole way, and I'm like, you get it parked, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
you're fried. It's just a lot.
Yeah, you just fall asleep. What would you recommend people do? It's tough because do you think GM has potentially it looks like Next Gen thinks they updated the valve body a little bit, but not to the extent that they should have to fix the problem. So you're still seeing 2025s with the issue?
So I've read a few things, and again, and I say this all the time with the things I put up for information in our Facebook group. It's hard to find what is accurate information and what is speculation and what is opinion. And I've seen a few pieces that indicate GM has what they believe is the redesign that will correct the problem, but that they are having difficulties getting it in production. And so obviously we're not going to see this issue in every single vehicle that falls under the recall or has this transmission valve body combination. But I mean, when you really think about it, the recall is for the 2020 and 2021s and the 2022 half-ton pickups that have the 10-speed transmission. But that's because they already had the software patch installed in 2022 and on. So if the 2020, 2021 recall is almost 500,000 vehicles, how many total vehicles are potentially impacted? We could be talking 3, 4, even 5 million vehicles.
Yeah.
When you go from 2020 all the way up to 2025, and right now you got the 2026 model year production going. So, you're talking about a massive number. And even when they do start getting these in new and improved valve bodies in, it's going to be a wait your turn kind of situation, because something tells me that their first priority is going to be the assembly line.
That's another thing that took forever, was just people sitting at the dealerships. Even when their transmission wasn't toast, they were waiting months for a valve body. Just
to get a valve body, yeah. And that's where Next Gen stepped in and talked to a lot of people, and they got some GM dealerships to buy their part because there's a clause in your warranty paperwork, if you read it, for aftermarket repairs under warranty. Because if they have your vehicle for 30 days and they can't fix it, then you have the ability to push. It can be a hard fight, but you have the ability to push and say, hey, you guys have got to go buy the part aftermarket. I know you get the part from GM for $150, but you're gonna have to pony up the $500, $600 and buy it somewhere else, because you have an obligation to fix the vehicle. But like I'm being told by this dealership that They quoted me $9,000 to do the transmission, and they don't know when they can get the transmission. Now, I just had a guy in our group with almost the exact same situation as me, hauling almost the same trailer. He was up in Utah at the time. He had his failed. He needed a new transmission, but he was under warranty, and they just replaced his transmission last week. So,
okay,
don't have transmissions, or have transmissions for certain cases and not for others.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's a big question mark there.
Yeah, they're probably playing chicken with you, like, well, he'll need his truck before we need to make a decision on this type feeling. Seems like that's what they're doing with you.
It seems like that. I think part of the problem is that with this whole issue, they're kicking the can down the road. They don't have the fix done yet. They can't actually fix it yet. And so in a lot of cases, they're going to drag their feet with people like me, because eventually I'm going to have to just pony up and pay for it myself. Right now, I'm talking to a dealership who they've said that they will. I told them the situation. I told them what we owe. I told them where we're at budget-wise, and told them what we can afford to do. And we're working on finding another truck where they'll take mine as a trade. They'll fix the transmission. They'll get it back on their lot and sell it. They get me in another truck, and everybody walks away a little bit hurt, but overall satisfied that we got it done. And I'm not gonna lie to you, they've got a lifelong customer if they pull off this kind of deal for me.
Yeah.
Because like I said, here's the thing: every business makes mistakes. We all screw up. I mean, we're small business owners over here. We've messed up, and I've always said I don't judge a business on whether they screw up or not, 'cause everybody does. I judge them how they fix it, how they correct it, and I feel like GM isn't stepping up to the plate for people. I mean, I'm seeing more and more stories all over the place. And again, especially, we start to put in perspective how many people are being impacted, how quickly. I launched that Facebook group the second week of January, and we're already up to 1,000 people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot.
Which anybody that knows social media group growth, that's like off the charts. It's obviously having a big impact. I mean, the first day we got 100 people, and I was like, oh wow, okay, what did I just create? What have I just been into?
Yeah.
And just I've taken it as my obligation to learn everything I can and get it out to people. I mean, I'm going to post this video on that group, and hopefully, when we get it out there, more people see this and go, hey, okay, there's a resource. Just come.
Yeah.
If we all stand together and point our finger at GM, hopefully GM goes, yeah.
Yeah. And if GM steps up, and what I want them to do at this point, I think it's two sides of the coin. I hear people all the time, especially YouTubers, that tend to, they get press vehicles. They kind of tell people, oh, it's only 1% or less. This is normal. This is what happens with mass manufacturing. And they kind of just make excuses for it. And I'm opposite. I'm like, look, if I see 5,000 people or 10,000 people affected, and you tell me that's an insignificant number, go ask those people where they got stranded. Go, it's so many different stories. And for me, I just want to see GM step up and say, okay, if it's really only 1% or less, then you shouldn't have any problem fixing all of these and going above and beyond and giving them new transmissions. If it's really such a small number, why do you have such a problem fixing it and maybe extending that warranty 10-year, 150,000 miles? If you're really confident in your product, you'd do that.
Extend the entire warranty, not just covering the valve body with this special coverage protection. No, I had the exact same conversation with somebody a couple of weeks ago. I go, if it's only 1%, then why aren't they stepping up? That 1%, that's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is that's how you prevent having egg on your face at the end of the day on this one. But the fact is, it's not just that it's 1% when it's a faulty carburetor that falls off, not a carburetor, like a faulty muffler that falls off, and you can still operate your vehicle. Everything's still safe. It just makes a lot of noise and it stinks. We're talking about something that, one, completely disables the vehicle in a lot of cases, disables it at speed on the highway and creates a potential hazard for others around it, but then also leaves people without use of their vehicle for an unknown amount of time. I mean, the risk. Every time I go in the water, if I go to the beach, there's a shark in the water. Is that shark 100 miles from me? Or is that shark 100 feet from me? In this case, the shark's 100 feet from you.
Yeah.
And it's not just a matter of, oh, well, yeah, it's a 1% occurrence. Well, a 1% occurrence of what?
Yeah.
So it's not like they can pander it off as, oh, it's only this. But in the meantime, it's like, when I had one of the people I had on with GM, the first person I talked to, and after what I went through and after reading some information about it and some of the stuff that had come out early on the process, I said to her, I said, hey, I know you probably don't have the answer to this question. And if you do have the answer, you can't give it to me, but I'm going to ask anyway. And my thought in there was, I like to judge people by their reaction when I ask them a question that they don't want to or can't answer. I said, how many people has this killed? And she went silent for about a minute. And she's like, well, I don't have that information. I was like, I didn't think you did, but your reaction told me what I needed to hear.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That we know this has killed this. We know this is a major hazard. We know that this has killed people, and you're playing like, oh, it's really not that big a deal. And because the other thing is, multiple transmission guys have told me, if this happens when you have the truck in 4-wheel drive, then all 4 wheels lock up.
Yeah.
Which is a whole other hazard condition. It's tough enough.
Yeah,
your rear wheels lock up for a second. Odds are, for most people not hauling a heavy load, they're going to barely notice it. They're going to feel the clunk, but they're not really. It's not going to be like, oh my god, it's going to be like, what the hell was that? They're going to go to the shop and they're going to be like, hey, check my truck out, and everything's good. But if all 4 wheels lock up, those front wheels lock up. It's kind of like having, if your rear tire blows out, you drag your rear end for a little bit. Your front tire blows out, you lose control, and you end up off the road.
Yeah.
So there's some scary aspects to this.
Yeah, and even if their software fixes it for, let's say it fixed it for 100% of them, it's still, I still go down the path of, if GM steps up and does the right thing, I'll gladly put out a follow-up video that says, hey, GM stepped up and they acknowledge they have this problem. And just like Toyota did, they send crate motors out to everybody that doesn't have a failed engine. I mean, there's guys out there with 50,000 miles on these Tundras, and they bring them into the shop and they get a brand new crate engine installed. It's a $20,000 engine. And it's like, that's how you take care of a problem and make people realize you're going to take care of them. But
and Toyota made sure Toyota won back the loyalty of those customers with that.
Yeah.
If GM, GM's having a lot of problems the last few years. This is how many recalls in the last big recall. I'm not talking about little stuff. These are big recalls. They're not looking real good right now. And if they don't do the right thing, a lot of people will be like, I just don't have the faith in GM. I'll take my chances with, at least from what I understand, Ford is stepping up and fixing the problems. They're having problems, but they're stepping up and fixing them. And I know in the warranty condition, when you're still under warranty, it's a whole lot easier. And again, but how many people are in the same boat as me, where they're over that 100,000 miles? And I'm barely over it, but I'm over it. Yeah. And that's always been the joke about warranties. So the second you're on a warranty, you're gonna have the problem.
Yeah.
But this isn't a okay, this guy didn't take good care of his truck. He didn't change the oil. He didn't flush the transmission. He didn't do all the things. This is a known defect. This is, the industry has the term cascading damages. That's what this is. The valve body failed and the transmission blew up. Seems pretty simple, but for some reason it's not.
Yeah, when that valve body decides to engage 4 clutches at once and lock the output shaft, that's gonna do some damage when you're hauling 15,000 pounds.
Yeah, no warning.
Yeah.
No warning. But I gotta say, like, because obviously, you're gonna attach the video here. Everybody saw the impact there. What happened? I will shout out all day long to B&W hitches, because that hitch held, and if that hitch didn't hold, I'm not having this conversation right now.
Yeah.
A lot of people looking for when it comes to heavy hauling, a lot of people are looking for lighter weight options in their fifth wheel hitches. You know, a lot of people switching to gooseneck, and a lot of people using like the Anderson Ultimate hitch. And I get it. You know, you get the bed of your truck back easier. They're lighter weight. They don't, you know. But the fact is, when all hell breaks loose, and you need that hitch to do its job, I will tell you, B&W did its job.
Yeah, and just so people are aware, I'm not sponsored by Next Gen. It's funny, I got a comment. People are like, this is feeling like a sponsored video from Next Gen Drivetrains. I'm like, whatever, you know, I wish I was sponsored, but you know, I'm not.
I wish too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say though, I mean, like the reason why I refer to them the way I do is that because they've had numerous conversations with me, educating me, helping me become aware, and you know, just being there. They're not like in our group. They're not all salesy. They're not all jumping all over everybody, going, "Oh, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff." When there's a question asked and they have the answer, they'll refer to the answer. You know, they wrote a great article about this recall and how they fixed it. And I posted that article in the group, and I posted it everywhere I could find, because it's great information. It wasn't like, hey, here's how you order. It was, no, here's what happened. Here's our process. Here's why our fix works. And you can do with that as you please.
Yeah, I did see too. They commented on my last video, and they did tell people, hey, if there are certain dealers, and probably rural dealers like you were saying, that are more interested in really getting that long-term customer, but they said, you know, about half the dealers will end up working with Next Gen, and they'll just order the parts and eat the cost, because they know that guy is going to come back in 3 years and buy another truck. And to them, it's a couple grand, and you know, it's worth it to have a happy customer.
Well, I mean, anybody that owns their own business knows that it's easier to keep a customer. It's easier and cheaper to keep a customer happy than to find a new one. We got a big problem out there. There's a lot of people that are getting hung out to dry. There's a lot of people sitting in limbo waiting, you know, that don't know. I mean, and like my whole purpose was to make more people aware of it. I mean, hell, to this day, I'm still hearing people say, I just found out about this the other day.
Yeah.
And, you know, and a lot of people are dismissive of it because of the way they describe it. Might result in a momentary rear wheel lock condition. It's like, well, that doesn't really sound all that significant.
Yeah.
But then they start hearing about the horror stories that are happening where, you know, people's transmissions are basically being completely destroyed. It's doing a whole bunch of other damage, you know, resulting in crashes. I mean, I'll tell you, if we had, when I'm hauling, if I'm hauling in a heavier traffic situation, I have 3 lanes, I'm usually in the middle, because I don't want to have to deal with all the people merging, but I also not going to be in the left lane, because I'm only hauling between 60 and 65 miles an hour. I don't push when I'm hauling my big trailer.
Yeah.
But if I was up closer to Denver, or something, I'd have been in the middle lane. And if you can see in that video, when that happened, my trailer pulled us 4 or 5 feet to the right. If there was a big truck next to me or a car, I mean, that's a pretty bad accident at that point.
Boy, yeah, you were lucky. Watching that video, you got really lucky at the location and the speed. You weren't going super fast. I mean, could have been a lot worse.
63 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
you could have been
middle of
going
nowhere,
around
south of Pueblo.
Yeah, you could have been going around a corner down I-70, you know, and there's a 200-foot drop off, and that happens, and look out. It's like, yeah,
up in the mountain, up the other side of tunnels. Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of ways that could have been a lot worse. We got out of it safe and sound. We're grateful for that. I hope everybody gets out of it safe and sound, but we also know that some haven't. And with that, I wanted to, my whole purpose with, you know, bringing together this community was, I want people to know everything they can know about it. I want to learn from people who know more than me. And when it comes time, I want GM to see this and go, ooh, that's a lot of people. We need to do something here. And we need to make sure things are being done right.
Yeah. Without, you know, I hope GM does something and extends the warranty for the people that have had, where they know that catastrophic failure happened from the valve body problem. They can take care of those customers. It wouldn't really cost them that much. That's a drop in the bucket for a multi-billion-dollar company. And yeah, you just look at it would go a long way. And I mean, at my channel, anybody's channel, they're gonna say if GM does the right thing and it doesn't take lawyers, like I don't think class actions should be. I hate it when it's like everything takes a class action to get them to do the right thing. It's like, why just do the right thing? You know, we don't need a class action. We don't need to pay lawyers to get this
Well,
done. Just
unfortunately, that's just not the way it works. I
yeah,
mean, and there's going to be a class action on this, and a bunch of people are going to get a check for a couple of $1,000, 5 years from now. But that doesn't help anybody. That doesn't help the guy who needs that truck to haul his backhoe to the job site. That doesn't help the guy that's hauling all his landscape and equipment around, or the people who are hauling across the country living their life. It's great. It's a great in a couple of years. I'm going to get a check for a couple of $1,000 and be like, ooh, okay, cool, all right, great. But it's not even going to come close to if I have to cover this all myself. It's not even going to come close to covering that. And in the meantime, we gotta take it on the chin and hope that we can keep our business growing the way we have, and that we'll be able to absorb it. But for now, things are tight, and lots of people are tight right now.
Oh yeah, it's frustrating, and then the cost of repairs on all these new vehicles has gone through the roof. It used to be transmission fails, and it's okay. I got $3-5 grand at most, and that was the worst case scenario. Now it's double.
Now when GM sent me the quote, the rebuilt transmission is almost $6,000. That's not even that's before any labor. That's before they install a valve body on it. That's just the transmission. And then they're saying 16, 18 hours of labor, which I thought sounded a little high, but I'm no expert. I'm not a guy in a shop turning wrenches, so I'm not going to make too much judgment there.
Man, yeah, that seems like a lot. But that's what I've heard. It's consistent with. Doesn't matter if it's Ford or GM or whatever. It ends up being around $9,000-$10,000 for this 10-speed. And remand, like you said. Is it what warranty did they provide? Would they provide on that?
I asked that question. They didn't answer it.
Oh, yeah. I'd be
Whereas
like,
at least
give me 200,000.
When I talked to, when I talked to Next Gen, I talked to No Zone out in Ohio, and I talked to a local Amco. At least they're all offering warranties. When they build a transmission, they're offering you a warranty.
Yeah.
And it's in most cases it's some form of three years and X number of miles.
Yeah.
So at least you have some confidence that it's good. I mean, if the dealership isn't answering, when I say, hey, what's the warranty going to be on that? That means they're going to live by, like, generally speaking, if a major automotive repair fails in the first year, you have grounds to go after them. But after that, it's going to be no, we're not warranting that anymore.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, this just builds the anxiety for people. I see so many people on my channel that they're just sidelined. They want to buy stuff and they're like, not yet. I'm on the sidelines for a while longer, and this just adds fuel to that fire.
Yeah. And here I am. I don't have a choice. I got to buy something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to buy something because the spot that I'm in, the campground down here in Larkspur has been great because they've been flexible. They've moved a couple, it's winter times. It's not like the place isn't full or anything, but we're in one of the higher demand areas of the park, and they've moved a couple people around for where they're going to be. But next month I got to move. Yeah.
So you're kind of you're getting into
they're like, hey, we got a group coming in that has that whole section reserved, so you're going to have to move. And I'm like, all right, I'll figure it out. If I have to pay somebody to haul me 1,000 feet to the next spot, then I'll do that. But it is what it is. Yeah. But I mean, we need to get back on with our lives. And, we were supposed to be in Dallas for business meetings, and then we were supposed to go down to Houston for business meetings, and we're here. And we did some stuff virtually, but the whole premise of a lot of our business is about, interpersonal connection and, meeting people in person and creating local communities. So it's tough to do.
Man.
And damn, it's been cold here.
Yeah, it's cold. I'm north of you about an hour and a half. So, yeah, I mean, today was nice, but it's been
No,
cold.
no. Yesterday was nice. Today it's supposed to be nice this week, but I mean, living in an RV when it's getting down to -5 at night is woo. We won't talk about what my propane bill's been this past 2 months.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's why I can do so much YouTube stuff. It's not bad sitting in the house. Half the time I don't want to be outside unless it's fishing season. So
No, I don't want to go out in that. My dogs don't even want to go out in that. I mean,
yeah, man. Well, I hope GM sees this. I hope they understand. People think I'm out to just bash people and bash these companies. It's not what I'm doing. It's consumer advocacy. Basically, I want people to get taken care of. If I was in that situation, I'd hope that they could step up and look. If they step up and they contact you, you can contact me. Let me know. I'll do a follow-up story and say, hey, look, GM did the right thing. So yeah.
If you know what, here I'm screaming from the rooftops right now about the problem. If GM does it right, I'll be the same guy screaming from the 2 rooftops, going, "Hey, GM took care of me. It's not easy. You got to be persistent. You got to do this. You got to do that." I'll tell that, because then the whole message is, okay, this is how you get it done.
Yeah.
This is how you get made whole. And if they do that, I will equally sing their praises. As like, I'm not trying to bash them. I get business. I get it's tough. I get you got millions of vehicles out there that are having problems. But when you have a problem, you got to take care of it. You got to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah, and when there's a readily available fix that they could use, man, they could have just hit the easy button a couple years ago.
You would think.
Would have cost them more, though, I'm sure. So
hey, you know what? Pick. Like I know, like I said, we've talked about Next Gen. I know there's a couple other groups that have come up with similar fixes. They all have their difference in the way that they went about it and how they created it. Pick one that you feel is the best fit. Buy the design from them. Take care of them, and then go get it manufactured in mass quantity, because they're going to need it. There's a whole lot of vehicles out there that are, for lack of a better way of putting it, they're ticking time bombs.
Yeah, I can't imagine. It kept me sidelined. I was looking at 1500s, and I like the little 3-liter diesel. I don't tow nearly as much as you do, and yeah, I stay sidelined from all the issues. I just keep looking at these trucks. I'm like, I'll just wait. It's eventually going to get better, hopefully. But we're just going through a bad moment.
Yeah, it's it is what it is. I don't want to sit here and sound like some whiner. It is what it is. We're dealing with it, and I wish if I had the money to just go, okay, fix it. I mean, just get it done. Just get it fixed. And I go about my life and do my thing. But the fact is, I'm like many others who don't have that ability right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets too steep, and you don't really expect to have to do that at like you said, 100,000 miles on a truck like that. It's not really, it's not what people expect to happen. Yeah. Yep. Well, Joe, I appreciate it. We'll see where it falls, and see if GM reaches out to you or if anything changes.
Yeah. Look, sounds good.
Hopefully be talking soon. I'll be in the group too.
I'm sure we will.
All right. Take care.
All right. Talk to you later.